This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
In Alabama, I have a property that is being property managed. I was contacted by the maintenance director. There was an issue, and I decided to try it myself. I went through Thumbtack. Cost me $82. It was not a big issue. He coordinated with the tenant. It took me literally 25 minutes. The empowerment that I felt from it was amazing because I live obviously in Phoenix. Yep. That's what gets to be daunting is how do I find someone, right? But it worked great. It really did.
Welcome to the Creating Wealth Show with Jason Hartman. You're about to learn a new slant on investing, some exciting techniques, and fresh new approaches to the world's most historically proven asset class that will enable you to create more wealth and freedom than you ever thought possible. Jason is a genuine self-made multimillionaire who's actually been there and done it. He's a successful investor, lender, developer, and entrepreneur who's owned properties in 11 states, had hundreds of tenants, and been involved in thousands of real estate transactions. This program will help you follow in Jason's footsteps on the road to your financial independence day. You really can do it. And now, here's your host, Jason Hartman, with the complete solution for real estate investors.
Alrighty, folks, we're going to do something special in this episode. We're going to take 3 or 4 different avatars, and Jason and I are going to break down what would we do if this is us. But first, we need your help. You see that cute, adorable little puppy there? We need a name. Currently, the 2 options are Sophie or Panda. If this was your puppy, which one would you choose? Let us know in the comments below. Are you leaning into Sophie or Panda? This ought to be fun, Jason. Let's see what the audience
She looks like
a
panda bear.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Jason,
and we'll get some good comments here. So that's good.
I hope so. Yeah, some people are creative. They may come up with some other unique names. But I want to get into this. Again, we have the ORAD event coming up in less than 2 weeks. You're going to see you in Vegas, so thank you for that. Your session is the morning of day 1, so I appreciate the fire that you're going to bring there. But I'm going to just break down a couple of examples of people who are going to be in the audience. And I just love to give your thoughts like, hey, if this was me or my sister or whatever, this is what I'd recommend. You ready?
Sure, let's go for it.
All right, so let's just go by ages and we'll start youngest to oldest. So let's assume you're between 20 and 25. You're out of school, whatever that school is, high school or college, it doesn't matter, whatever it is. Let's say you have a job. Let's say you're making, I don't know, $50K a year, and you're currently, let's say you're living at home. Let's say you're living at home. What would be kind of the first 2 or 3 steps, if that was you, Jason, that you would do going for this? Is going to be fun. This is going to be exciting. So again, what would you tell that 20,
how much
25?
money, depends how much money you have, right?
So, okay. So let's assume you've already secured 10 grand. Let's say you've tucked away 10 grand. I don't know, from babysitting money. I don't care. You've got 10 grand. You have a job, 50K, living at home. Let's assume no car payment. Let's assume you don't have $1,000 car payment. So let's just kind of set that up.
What about a student loan?
Let's assume no student loans either. So minimal expenses, living at home, 10 grand, early 20s. What do you do?
Possible answer for that is side hustle. A business might be the best investment. Of course, I'd love to say buy some rental property, but it's pretty hard to buy rental property with 10 grand. Okay?
You're leaning into increase income.
Yeah. Increase income. That's just a key thing. People try to use real estate for income, and it's not great at that. It's great at wealth building, but that's a more complicated equation where using it as income is harder. So it doesn't produce great income. Building wealth, rental real estate, income property is the best. So I'd say, put it into a business, a side hustle, if you can use that to increase income. That would be great. The other thing, as far as the real estate side, is consider doing wholesale, because you do a couple of those and you'd have enough money to buy your first rental property. The problem is most people that wholesale or flip and do that kind of like those quick deals, the problem they have is they spend their money. They don't invest, right? And that's what just leads to kind of the constant treadmill in life.
Yeah. So when I think about this person, and again, I love this conversation because I'm with you. The answer that probably shocks people is neither you or I say go buy real estate. The first thing I would tell you is keep doing what you're doing, right? So again, living at home, no debt, no crazy expenses. That $10,000 is going to compound very quickly, right? Because if you're making $50K, you're probably net, like post-tax, you're probably $45K. And again, if you have almost no expenses, you probably can save $2,000 a month. In fact, that'd be the first thing I would do is I would find a bogey that is hard, but not impossible to save. Like I would probably in this situation, try to stack $2,000 a month. So it goes from 10 to 12 to 14 to 16.
That would be pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I would do that. And then you're absolutely right. I would find a way to lean into what we call a side hustle today. And it's never been easier to do that. Because again, I think you're absolutely right. And again, the beauty of this is it could be something you've had a hobby with. People don't realize, like, if you're 25, you've probably liked something for a decade. And I don't care what it is. It could be Star Wars, Pokemon cars, Ford Mustangs. It doesn't matter. There's a world out there where you can create a community and monetize that in a side hustle. So I'll close on this. The thing that I would try to get to is what a friend of mine, Matt, the lumberjack, calls the 4-3-2-1 strategy. So I would start shopping for a fourplex in my area. And again, you're probably not going to get to it with 10 grand down, probably not even 20 grand down. But I just want you to look at them to understand what they cost, because that's the first thing you're going to buy is a fourplex.
Definitely being aware of the market. You know, whether you buy a single family home or a duplex or a fourplex or whatever, you got to get educated. Like when I was young, I was always looking at properties. I couldn't even afford it, but I was looking. It was becoming a market. That's really important.
Yeah. All right. Now let's go to number 2. Let's assume now you're married, so it's a couple. Let's assume you have a kid. Kid's, I don't know, under 5, so a baby. Let's call it a baby. Dual income. Now you're making $125K. You're renting. You're a renter. And I don't know, let's say you've got a car payment, I don't know, $800 a month. You've got some credit card debt. I don't know. Anything else you want to know about this situation?
Well, what should you do? At that point, I'd be buying rental properties. That's when you become the long-term buy-and investor. You can get 1 a year, if you can get 5 a year, whatever it is, you just got to start.
I've never asked this question of you. Let's just assume they have $8,000 in credit card debt paying 24% interest. Are you of the mind you got to pay that off kind of first because that's just an immediate 24% savings? Is that where you go?
Well, thank you to Donald Trump. It's only going to be 10%, right?
We'll see.
With his new proposal, yeah. And
we'll see.
And so yeah, I'd probably get that. That's pretty expensive, so I'd get that debt paid.
Yeah,
you're
I think
that's just getting killed. You basically think of it like this. When you're paying that kind of really usurious interest, you're basically renting.
Yeah.
It's so hard to ever be chunking the principal away. You're just renting the money and paying 24%. I mean, that's just insane.
Yeah. Let's assume you live in a crazy expensive part of the world, New York City, Silicon Valley, Miami, and, you're building a real estate portfolio somewhere else that, where the numbers make sense.
Right.
I'm curious where you come down on this. Are you of the mind rent where you are, like rent in the valley and then buy assets definitely. Somewhere else? Yeah. So talk about that.
Definitely rent the expensive home because the rent to value ratio is very favorable for the tenant. The higher the value of the property, the more rent to value ratio, RV ratio is in favor of the renter. Whereas the inexpensive properties, it's more in favor of the landlord, the owner. So you definitely want to arbitrage that. But I would say more than that, more broadly speaking, consider living in a lower cost place. And here's the counterintuitive thing. Look, I grew up in Los Angeles as a kid. I lived in Orange County as an adult, living in Newport Beach, Newport Coast, Irvine, very expensive markets. I'll tell you, it's counterintuitive, but when I moved to Arizona in 2011, my quality of life became dramatically better. The more expensive market does not necessarily mean the quality of life is better. Sometimes it's actually worse. Let me tell you why. I developed a whole theory around this a very long time ago. When the real estate is really expensive in a market, you go to a coffee shop and you can't get a seat. because everything's smaller, everything's more crowded, everything's more dense. Okay. And people are competing for very limited resources. Also, people are more grouchy. Okay, because
Stress.
there's a famous experiment on this, right? You put a whole bunch of rats in a small space and they fight, right? They're fighting for resources versus a large space where they're spread out, where they get along fine. Okay, and so I would never want to live in New York City, even though I can easily afford it and I could live very well there. Like, why? The quality of life is not better. People don't live as long living in high density cities as they do in suburban or rural areas. Like, they live longer, they're healthier. It's just better. Nowadays with communication, you don't need to live in any certain place.
Yeah, I think that is something that I think more and more people need to realize. Especially if you're Gen Z.
They are realizing it. I mean, they are realizing it.
You're seeing the migration patterns for sure. But it's okay, right? Again, with communication vehicle, tech, it's just the right option for a lot of people. Quality of life just gets better when you can make those moves. Yeah. So now let's
the taxes. I mean, you're paying to the government. It really inhibits your ability to build wealth.
Agreed.
You can't. I mean, if you're just paying the government, and remember, it's not just income tax. You're paying in a lot of other ways. The cost of everything you buy is impacted by the cost of taxes in that jurisdiction. So
I'll give you a real example. So I left California over 3 years ago, and I bought a crazy expensive house in Vegas, and my tax savings from state income tax pays my mortgage.
Oh, no question. Yeah. I'll share my own example. When I lived in Orange County, California, and I sold my house there, I think my all-in TI plus association fees, I was paying $11,000 for my house there. And it wasn't any, gorgeous mansion or anything. It wasn't that big a deal. I mean, it had a nice view and stuff, right? It was not a big deal. And so I went from $11,000 a month as an owner to renting a penthouse here in Arizona for $3,600 a month.
Wow.
3,600 square feet, brand new, 10-foot ceilings, floor to ceiling glass. I mean, it was gorgeous, right? I just couldn't believe how much better life got in like every way, and how I could build wealth so much faster because I wasn't paying the government. I wasn't paying 11 grand a month. And adjust that for inflation. Okay, by the way, 2011. So the 11 grand a month then would be equivalent to like, $23,000 a month now, probably, right?
Probably, yeah.
And that rent would be equivalent to about $7,200 now, maybe about double it in real terms.
Yeah. All right, let's do one more avatar, because I get this a lot. Again, a lot of the audience sometimes gravitates to who the creator is. So let's assume you're 45 or older. You're a senior executive making a couple of bills at least a year. You got a 401k, let's say, 800 grand or something, maybe even say it's $1 million, but you got no real estate. What do you tell people like that? Do you just say, hey, hold on tight and hope luck happens and the 401k doubles? Or what are you telling these folks?
Yeah, Michael, you got to get in the game. I mean, you're just going to get left behind because, the first time everybody's familiar with the cash flow game, the Rich Dad cash flow. And we used to host that game at my office in Newport Beach, and once a month we'd play it. People would come in and play. We had a whole bunch of them. The first time I ever played it, I was the doctor. And I thought, I'm going to win, right? And I actually lost because people, their expenses, you know, even if you have a high income, your expenses meet the income. And
that was such an eye-opening.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Again, it's funny. I played that game hundreds of times now. Actually, I have it on my shelf right there. And I will play anybody. If you want to be a doctor or a lawyer and I'm a teacher or policeman or whatever, I'll crush you 99% of the time. Right? This is why getting wealthy is it's the thing that taught me this. If you have an income making 400 grand a year, it's really hard to replace that. It takes a long freaking time. But if you make 40 grand a year, you could do that in 5 years.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah. And it keeps you stuck. Whenever you have something, there's the sunk cost fallacy, among other fallacies that come into play, right? where you just don't want to give it up. You might be in a relationship, a marriage, have a career. If you went to medical school, you're not going to leave that because you invested too much. There's too much sunk cost in the relationship, the medical school, whatever, to do something else. And so a lot of times that keeps you trapped in a cage, whereas that can really limit your flexibility.
Yeah. Well, folks, I want to give you a little tease here. Again, we obviously have our Vegas event coming up in a couple of weeks. But more importantly, I'm going to live stream it inside my school community. So again, Jason will be speaking day one, the morning of. There's 4 invites already in school. If you wanted to tune in for Jason's, again, it'll be day one, Saturday in the morning. Jason, can you give us just a little tease of what your talk's going to be about?
Yeah, well, I'm going to hopefully blow up a lot of myths about people's belief in the economy and the market. I'm definitely doing that, Michael. Depending on how much time I have, and let's maybe after this we'll look at the schedule.
I have 1 hour. You kept the hour.
I'd love to get into what I call the perpetual motion machine of income property and how your properties basically buy more properties for you. No one could ever invent the perpetual motion machine. Around the turn of the century, from the 1800s to the 1900s, that was all over the place where people were trying to invent this machine. It can't be invented, right? Because, at least so far, because physics, it just breaks the laws of physics. But with income property, it does exist. So,
again, folks, tune in. Join school. It's only $20. Last year, I sold live streams for $100 or $99. I'm not doing this year. I want you in school. I want you around the other 500 wealth builders. See all the other goodies in there. So again, if you want to cheat the system and be frugal, buy a month and leave. That's okay. I think you're going to find the community pretty awesome and you're going to stick around. Jason, perpetual money machine. Let's go. Thanks, buddy.
Motion. Yeah, motion. And money.
There you go.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.